I had only heard of this Twisted Metal TV
Mhm,
series like
Mm.
a handful of days ago. I didn't know they were
mhm.
making it. I never played the video game. So please enlighten.
Yeah,
Whoever.
Oh,
yeah,
don't look
yeah,
to
sorry.
me.
Yeah, no, that's all good, yeah. So, yeah, I kinda binged this, I actually finished it up today, and, it's got Anthony Mackie is the
Mhm.
main
Okay.
character in this, and he plays the protagonist that's, they call them milkmen, which are they run they basically they're like package runners. They run a package from one area to another, which is kind of the pretense of the story, with a lot of the Twisted Metal story. Um, Incredible characters, as you would expect. Sweet Tooth is in it for sure. You know, he's got his ice cream truck with the bouncing thing and missiles coming out of it and all kinds of crazy effects. It had a really good effects budget. The story is okay to serviceable. I mean, it's about what you would expect. They kind of had to pull a lot
Mhm.
out of the video games and a lot of the backstory. But one of the things that, and this is, I don't know if this is really much of a spoiler, but this really isn't about the the actual tournament,
Yeah.
the Twisted Metal tournament. This is a prequel. This is getting the character John Doe set up to be the for the tournament. And season one seems to be doing pretty well from what I hear. And if they do, they set this thing up for season two because they mentioned the tournament at the very end of it, and that they're going to have John Doe be in it. One thing that I could say that they didn't have in the series that they hopefully they'll fix in the second season is they need to have Rob Zombie in it, because Rob Zombie was one of the characters in
Yeah.
Twisted Metal. So they
Hmm.
would have Sweet Tooth come back, of course, and then have Rob Zombie. But story is funny. It's crude. Lots of middle fingers and lots of blood and gratuitous violence and exactly what you would expect from Twisted Metal.
Okay.
If you ever played the video game, it's a it's pretty much exactly what you would expect from it. And I was actually amazed that they came out with a very serviceable story with multiple protagonists that worked very well together. I'd say if you're looking for something that's a pretty good video game adaptation, it's I think you'd enjoy it.
Okay. Well, I know
Yeah,
Sweet Tooth, and he's the only character I'm familiar. I'm not, and I'm
that's
not
what
even
everybody knows
remotely
him. Yeah.
familiar. Yeah, I just know him from the seeing him on the video game, the commercials and stuff back in the day. Played by Samoa Joe.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
the body is
Oh,
Samoa Joe, the voice is Will Arnett, I think.
Will
oh,
Arnett,
okay.
yes, and it is very. I mean, the thing is as soon as he starts talking, you're like, he's just one level of
Da-da-da-da.
notes above a Batman, like Lego Batman. So it's like he kind of sounds Lego Batman-ish. He just doesn't have the growl to it. And yeah,
Interesting.
Samoa Joe did a really good job with the acting because toward the end of it, he actually has he has a co-pilot that stays with him, and you don't really know what's in it until you realize like toward the end of it that it's actually lighter fluid, and they have him pour lighter fluid all over his head, and they light his head on fire.
Uh,
So that he looks, because I mean he
yeah.
has the mask with the tufts of
Mhm.
hair coming out, but he actually lights his head on fire, so he actually becomes the Sweet Tooth that we know from the game.
Mm.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, it was pretty
So
incredible.
Samoa Joe body with a Will Arnett voice. That's
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, the mask was I mean the whole show is really good. It's very well done, and it's a part of like Sweet Tooth that I never would have known. They actually spent a lot of time on him because, like you
Well,
said,
he
Brock, he's the
yeah.
only one you remember, right?
Mhm.
So
Is this was a PlayStation game?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm.
And that's why I never played it. I never had a PlayStation.
Well, I mean, Twisted Metal kind of, if I remember right, we had Road Rash, which was
Yeah.
the motorcycle game, and that kind of the whole idea of being able to kick people around and do things like that. That game came out. And then we had Twisted Metal. Then we had
Yeah.
like a Carmageddon came
Vigilante
after that.
8. They were such it created a genre of games.
I mean, that genre of game, if I'm not mistaken, actually inspired that really, really gratuitously bad game Postal that
Mm.
came
Oh,
out.
I remember that. That was controversial.
And it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Postal, and they actually came out with a sequel to that too, and it was just as horrible. It was really, really bad. But just that whole genre of games that just wanted to push the buttons. Twisted Metal was probably one of the more well polished ones, which is I think is why it's got a backstory. It's got and they do a really good job with this. Like I said, it's a prequel, and usually when you realize it's a prequel, you're like, oh man, we're not going to get to see any of the good characters. But you get to the end of it, and they kind of they imply heavily that season 2 is going to have these because they start showing pictures of the characters on this little board, and it makes me excited. But potentially for watching
Outside of
season 2.
Sweet Tooth, I'm thinking of the guy with the big arms that has the big wheels. Is that a Twisted Metal character?
He is a Twisted Metal character, yes,
Okay.
and he is actually mentioned at the end of the season.
Okay. Okay.
So he would be.
I don't know his character's
wasn't in
name,
the
but that's just
season.
one of those iconic things for Twisted Metal I automatically always think
Mhm.
of.
And then there was the guy that has the motorcycle that's got the skull on his. I forget his name, but I should probably already know all these guys. But
Shoot.
no, it's Sweet Tooth was like the centerpiece of the whole
Yeah.
thing. I mean, he comes in and out. I mean, he's in almost every episode, starting with like episode 2 to some extent or another.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
He goes through, has a fan club at some point, and I mean, just like stuff you would never assume that would ever be Sweet Tooth. If anything, it's one of those things where you watch it just so that you can hear Will Arnett doing a voice like that, and he kills it. I mean, it's Will Arnett. He's amazing.
This is on Amazon Prime.
Peacock.
No, Peacock.
Peacock. Okay.
Peacock exclusive. Yep.
Well, we'll definitely check that out.
It might be a bit much for you, Brock. You may not like it, but just give it a shot.
I can handle a lot of things. It all depends on who's involved with it.
There's no Seth Rogen in this.
Oh, there's your segue.
And there's our transition.
There you go. Yeah.